not a writing class, then for every essay they write, they have to read somebody else's. And in the feedback at the end of the semester, across the board, every single person said that was the most useful, because in reading other people's, they started recognizing their own mistakes and how they could improve.
They learn actually from each other,
Yes.
And they accept actually this kind of correction, and they think it's really fun. Oh, I'm the teacher here, you know. One of the students' comments, you know, that I would rank as like the best comment I ever read in any evaluation or any of my evaluations, is that the student actually wrote that the class was very useful, and I'm very glad that now I can think in Arabic, not in English. So these intensive readings along with writings and speaking really made them confident in the language, and they starting being creative with the language the way they want to be.
Yeah, I'd like to, one comment about peer tutoring as well. You know, our writing program here uses peer tutoring, so our students should be familiar with, those of them who take composition anyway, are familiar with the process, and I think that helps.
Could I make a comment? I just wanted to follow up on the peer editing. I found it really useful because the students actually engage in discussing points of grammar or whatever, and I found that sometimes when one student explains something to another, they end up somehow understanding it better. It's their language, their lingo, their perspective. So I do like peer editing as well. It's time consuming. It eats up your class time. That's the only...
That's why you can assign it outside. And if you do every other one where sometimes I edit and they edit every one, but if I have several essays, then some only they edit and some I edit, and that's a way of dealing with having classes. I had a writing class with 18 students. I can't read 7 essays, 2 drafts for 18 students thoroughly.
I have done peer editing in the advanced grammar composition actually, but definitely for content, and also trying to find the progression of the arguments and so on, which is so important in a French essay, very different from the American essay, but never for grammar, because I have tried that and it went down totally, because they saw mistakes that did not exist, and so on. So I don't know.
Well, but I was talking about the lower level,
no, content, yes, but
where it's very confined.
Content and the progression, and you know, if you, well, this argument, I don't understand where you go with it, and so on. So that is great, yes. But never the grammar anyway, never the structures, because they destroy their peers' work sometimes.
But maybe providing them with the same rubric, maybe providing them with the same rubric that he used, and then ask them to grade like based on this rubric, so they would know exactly what they should be looking for.
No, they find mistakes that don't exist.
But then don't they talk about it?
The first mistake I learned was that you need to pair them yourself and not let them pick their own. Because then you end up with a student who's not as good, a student who's excellent, and a student who's not as good. We'll be inventing all kinds of mistakes in our career.
But to argue a grammatical point, then the one who has not made mistakes, of course, will say, no, we do this and that. Okay, but you cannot spend a whole hour doing that with 18 students. I mean, the content is very interesting for peer editing.
One last question, and then we'll make sure to give a round of applause here.
So I was just going to say, I think this is an important point. We have to be careful about how much latitude we provide students to get feedback on things like accuracy. But certainly there is a great deal of utility for peer feedback. If nothing else, that'd be great sort of about noticing. And I'll just mention that the CSLC is really interested in working with faculty on a sort of pilot basis. If you mentioned the issue of time in class, if you would like to structure an out-of-class time a few times in the semester for students to come and do this sort of peer tutoring, not under your supervision, but things that we can sort of verify in the center, that's a really good use of the center space. So let me just throw that out there. The other thing I want to mention that hasn't been brought up by anyone, but you alluded to it when you talked about the students getting so much exposure to the reading. Extensive reading is sort of what you were describing. Extensive reading is actually a pedagogical technique where you have students read massive amounts of text, but not necessarily for full comprehension, for sort of general meaning. They get the gist of it. And what we find is, even if the students aren't aware of certain grammatical features, certain grammatical patterns, and certainly vocabulary is a big one, their mind, as the mind is a very statistical machine, it will pick out these things, and suddenly they'll develop this intuition for things like grammatical structures that they didn't even know they had. They'll start recognizing words they didn't know they knew. And so that's another advantage of this sort of approach, using blogs, because it does expose them to a lot of meaning-based reading.
Yes, they start actually developing the sense of the language that many native speakers have. And okay, I'm a native speaker, I say it this way, but I have no clue why I'm saying the sentence this way.
They started developing that actually. They would guess the prepositions, they would guess the structures, but they have no clue why they are saying it this way. It's because they are exposed to a lot of reading and a lot of writing. So
If you have any other questions, please feel free to email our presenter. Thank you. And thank you to all our presenters today who have a very interesting view on different approaches on writing. Thank you. There is still some more